What if a self-proclaimed goddess turned her followers into worshippers of blood and fear? Deep in the sun-scorched Mexican desert lies a tale so dark, it's almost unbelievable. A story of a woman who rose from obscurity to become the feared leader of one of history's most sinister cults. Magdalena Solis wasn't just a spiritual guide. She declared herself the High Priestess of Blood, ruling through fear, manipulation, and an eerie, almost supernatural presence. Her followers worshipped her with unwavering devotion, while those who dared to oppose her met fates too horrifying to imagine. Her name, once whispered in terror, has nearly faded into obscurity. But today, we're peeling back the layers of history to uncover the chilling truth about Magdalena Solis. Her meteoric rise to power, the unholy rituals that cemented her grip, and the bone-chilling legacy that still haunts the annals of history. From the desolate desert landscapes to the blood-soaked ceremonies that defy belief, this is the story of a woman whose power seemed to transcend life and death itself. But fair warning, this darkness is not for the faint of heart. If you're ready to confront one of the most disturbing tales in history, let's dive into the truth about Magdalena Solis, the High Priestess of Blood. What drives an ordinary person to become the embodiment of fear and darkness? Magdalena Solis didn't start life with a crown or a throne. She wasn't born into royalty or privilege. Her story began in a small, forgotten town in the heart of Mexico, far removed from the towering power she would one day wield. Raised in poverty, her world was shaped by scarcity and hardship. But even as a young girl, there was a fire within her, a hunger for something more, a hunger that refused to be silenced by the limits of her circumstances. Her early years were steeped in struggle. Accounts of her childhood reveal a grim existence marked by loss, hardship, and an unrelenting fight for survival. But through these struggles, Magdalena wasn't just learning resilience. She was nurturing something far more sinister. Beneath the surface, an unspoken desire for control and dominance took root, a longing for the kind of power that could bend the world to her will. Somewhere in the shadows of her life, darkness began whispering her name. Then came the cult. Imagine the barren desert lands of rural Mexico, where desperation and mysticism intertwined. Whispers of supernatural rituals filled the air, rituals of blood, sacrifice, and unholy bonds with otherworldly forces. This wasn't a group of wanderers seeking spiritual refuge. This was a congregation of terror, a group that believed blood wasn't just symbolic. It was a conduit to dark, untapped power. So how did Magdalena, a woman from such humble beginnings, rise to the center of this macabre group? Was it mere coincidence, or was it destiny? Did she stumble upon this cult by chance, or had ambition already begun carving her path to infamy? Was she a victim, lured into their world? Or had she always harbored the potential to become the infamous High Priestess of Blood? But the most chilling question remains. How did this ordinary woman transform into a figure of such terror and infamy? What gave her the edge to rise above other cult leaders and cement her legacy in the annals of darkness? Stick around, because the answers are more horrifying than you could ever imagine. How does an ordinary woman rise from obscurity to become a living goddess? When Magdalena Solis seized control, it wasn't by chance. It was calculated, deliberate, and fueled by an unyielding force of will. She didn't just lead, she conquered. To her followers, she wasn't merely a spiritual guide, but a divine oracle, the voice of gods demanding absolute devotion and blood. She promised them power, immortality, and salvation, but at an unimaginable cost. And they paid it willingly, sacrificing not only their possessions but their very humanity. The rituals that defined Magdalena's reign weren't simple or symbolic. Forget the harmless imagery of candles and chants. Her ceremonies were drenched in blood, in the most literal sense. These were brutal, horrific acts of violence, carried out under the scorching desert sun. Her followers, consumed by fear and blind faith, spilled blood at her command. Every sacrifice was an offering, a gruesome currency, meant to solidify her unshakable grip on power and the supernatural blessings she claimed to control. To her cult, Magdalena wasn't a mere mortal leader. She was salvation incarnate, a goddess walking among them. She held the power to decide who thrived and who perished. Her word wasn't just law, it was gospel. But beneath the chilling rituals and divine facade, Magdalena Solis was something else entirely. A master manipulator. She preyed on the weak, the lost, and the desperate, weaving a web of control so complete that her followers believed their lives and their souls depended on her. And this raises the most haunting question. Was Magdalena truly a sorceress wielding powers beyond comprehension? Or was she simply exploiting fear, desperation, and human vulnerability, using the illusion of power to dominate? Could it be that her magic wasn't supernatural at all, but something far darker, something that thrives in the minds of those desperate enough to believe in it? But where did her terrifying influence truly come from? Was it otherworldly magic, psychological manipulation, or the unrelenting human need to believe in something greater, no matter the cost? Stick with us, because as we uncover the truth behind her power, the answers reveal something far more chilling than any ritual. Every empire built on fear and blood eventually faces its day of reckoning. Magdalena Solis's rise was as dazzling as it was horrifying. But even the most unyielding reins cannot withstand the weight of betrayal. The cracks in her dark empire began as whispers, tiny seeds of doubt among her once loyal followers. At first, promises of immortality and divine power had seduced them. But as the rituals turned darker and the sacrifices more gruesome, loyalty gave way to fear, and fear, over time, became rebellion. But who dared to betray the High Priestess of Blood? Was it a trusted lieutenant, someone close enough to see through her veil of power? Or was it the collective awakening of a cult teetering on the edge, realizing they'd followed her into a nightmare they could no longer escape? Whatever the truth, the betrayal was inevitable. Fear, once her most potent weapon, had become her downfall. Her empire crumbled as swiftly as it had risen. The tightly controlled congregation descended into chaos, its members turning on one another as Magdalena's grip slipped. The goddess they had worshipped so fervently was suddenly vulnerable. But what became of her? Did justice finally catch up to the High Priestess of Blood? Did she vanish into the desert, leaving behind only a trail of terror? Or does her story end in even darker, unrecorded corners of history, shrouded in the same mysteries as the desert itself? And what of her followers? Were they scattered to the winds, their lives shattered by the horrors they had witnessed? Or did Magdalena's influence linger, infecting their attempts to rebuild? Could remnants of her dark legacy still exist today, buried in whispers and shadows, waiting to resurface? The haunting truth is that some horrors don't end. They echo through time, leaving traces in the unlikeliest of places. Stick with us, because unraveling the aftermath of Magdalena Solis reveals that the terror she unleashed may still haunt us today. Even death couldn't silence the legend of Magdalena Solis. Her story lingers, a haunting echo in the shadows of history that refuses to fade. Though the blood-soaked practices of her cult were exposed, whispers persist, rumors that fragments of her influence still endure. Hidden in the dark, forgotten corners of the world. Magdalena's name lives on, a chilling specter in tales of fear and fascination. Some claim her rituals didn't die with her. In remote, isolated places, whispers suggest her teachings still echo in hushed tones, passed down like forbidden knowledge. Stories speak of secret gatherings, blood offerings, and prayers to the High Priestess of Blood. But are these accounts mere superstition? Or is there something far more sinister beneath the surface? Could her influence, her power, still ripple through time, waiting for a new devotee to take up her mantle? And then comes the most unsettling question of all. Was Magdalena Solis truly a supernatural force? Or was she the ultimate manipulator? A myth carefully crafted from the fears of her time. If she was merely a legend, why does her story continue to chill us to the bone? And if she wasn't, if she truly wielded some otherworldly power, could the High Priestess of Blood rise again? Adding to the unease are the whispers that her spirit still haunts the desert sands where her empire once stood. Some believe she waits in the shadows, biding her time for the right moment to return. Is her legacy just a dark chapter in history? Or could it be a harbinger of horrors yet to come? The story of Magdalena Solis is more than a tale from the past. It's a question of what still lurks in the unknown. Could her influence rise again, infecting new followers with the same darkness? Or is her terror forever confined to the pages of history? Stay with us, because uncovering her legacy might reveal that some nightmares never truly end. Magdalena Solis's story is a haunting blend of power, fear, and unimaginable bloodshed. As the High Priestess of Blood, she left a chilling mark on history, a legacy shrouded in darkness and mystery that refuses to fade. Even now, her name raises questions that send shivers down the spine. Was she a cunning manipulator? Or was there something truly supernatural behind her rise to infamy? If this dark and fascinating tale gripped you as much as it did us, show your support by hitting the like button. It helps us bring more stories like this to life. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more unsettling deep dives into history's eeriest and most mysterious figures. But we want to hear from you too. Do you think fragments of Magdalena Solis's legacy could still exist today? Could her influence still be lurking in the shadows, waiting to resurface? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We're curious to see what you think. And remember, this is just the beginning. Stay tuned as we uncover more eerie stories of forgotten figures and sinister events that history has kept hidden. You won't want to miss what we discover next.